everything pretty much planned out. Yeah, the drugs were my new family, and alcohol became my mistress. That was after a little while. And this, yeah, when I was 12 years old. The reason for being homeless the first time was stealing money and liquor from my mom and dad. And that was they would leave thousands of dollars in their drawers, and I would take maybe a third of it and go buy baseball cards. I started drinking when I was really young, probably 12, and that was my first love, and it got out of control to the point where I was made to leave the house when, for a few nights when I was a teenager, and I got into a lot of fights, and after so many fights, my parents just gave up. They threw in the towel, said I had to figure it out for myself, and so I did. And so probably when I was about 16, as soon as I got out of school for the first time, I was homeless. I wasn't allowed back at my parents' house, but I stayed in my car around the corner, and they didn't like that very much. And so I ended up moving to Tacoma, had my first kid, and I was drinking even more every single day, all the time. And I worked, I lost my jobs, I lost my girlfriend at the time, and I was almost in Tacoma. And that was way more scary than anything, on Commerce Street, having to deal with a lot of the crackheads, and the violence. I really didn't know anything about it, so I just was very timid, and I was still alone. I felt pretty alone still. And after I moved back up here after I lost my first son. I went back to Shoreline and tried to work again. I couldn't, and I had some legal stuff going on at the time. My dad had me arrested for breaking into his house because I was, running from somebody. So after my legal problems and my drinking problems, and I was really getting into cocaine when I was about 17, 18, and that became even better. And so alcohol and cocaine, and then when, I tried heroin a couple times when I was younger, but I didn't really get too much, interested until I was getting hurt all the time. I broke my knees. Somebody fell on them, and so I started doing pills, and that turned into a heroin addiction when I couldn't get off, so when I couldn't find anything else. So I just ended up becoming a heroin addict, alcoholic, everything drug related I would do, and that was to numb everything out. I was distraught all the time. I couldn't hold down anything by the time I was about 20, 22, 23. I wasn't able to hold a job, relationship, even with my parents, my siblings, anybody. So, and all the girls that I met and had relationships with didn't last very long because my alcohol was more important. And so I was a repeat offender with the homelessness. Every relationship I ended up homeless. It was bad, and I tried working some of the times when I was homeless, and I couldn't do it. I got lost. I became lost of everything, my whole sight. And in about 2008, about 2006 and 2007, I was finally getting it together, where I was holding the job down, still drinking, not very much, but still holding the job down for more than 6 months was a pretty extreme, awesomeness for me. And after that, I got to live somewhere, and I just felt I was feeling good, and then I got too comfortable, and I lost everything again. And that was the first time that like everything had just disappeared from me within 24 hours. Everything bad that you can imagine happened, and I was, for a few years off and on, I was suicidal because of that. And after attempting to make some pretty decent friends, I started hanging out with a lot of older people and telling me that they've had it worse, or they're comparing stories, and I got inspired to do something else, kind of try a different path. And 2008, I was clean, sober for a couple years before, for about a year before I met Bella. And in 2008, I met Bella. And that was somebody that, at first she said she understood me. The first time she ever saw me, she said, "I found you," which was pretty amazing and weird at the same time. And hesitantly, I stuck with it. And she helped me kind of feel better about myself. She was, there. She would leave, when I made mistakes. She was very consistent and very persuasive, and everything that I kind of was looking for at the time, it was wrapped up into that girl. And so, but then we started doing drugs together, and I was going to jail a lot, and it just turned into pretty much a drug relationship, and after meeting her sober, more or less, and it was very difficult to not say no. And we've been through everything. She helped me stop drinking, and I drank for 25 years, and she was the inspiration. I had gotten beat up and almost died in the U District, being curb stomped and just beaten to the point where I was almost unrecognizable. And then I put my hands on Bella afterwards because I didn't know who she was. I had drank a half gallon of tequila and got into something I shouldn't have. And it put some pretty everlasting repercussions in my life, and also probably, I don't say it should have happened, but it was a lesson learned that I should never drink again. I've only seen these stamps in books. That's it. And I'm like, oh crap. This was written in June of 1945. 5 years time, I see myself at least in a place, somewhere in a place, and maybe with some sales for photography, and maybe that would be in a job, really just besides paneling, just a job, and like just living simply inside where I can call a place, lay my head down, my home, and maybe a better relationship with my parents.
Bella.
How old?
I used to
Give or take?
say how old.
26.
30 something. I was born in Florida, and we moved to South Dakota when I was 3. I broke my arm, every bone in my right arm, cracked my collarbones, gave my shoulder when I was 12, and they put me on Demerol. And I went in and out of surgeries until the time I was 18, and they got me stuck on Demerol. And then they kicked me off, didn't tell me I'd be sick, nothing, and I ended up running away from home because of it, and I've been homeless on and off ever since. The last apartment I had, me and my husband had lost in August. I've been homeless ever since. I've lost 3 kids due to my addiction, my partner's addiction, just the way this state runs, the way CPS runs in the state has been difficult, and I wish things were different, but they aren't, so I have to deal with it the way I do every day. What else to say besides that?
What are some things that you would like the world to know about you, about Eric, about homeless folks and friends?
Well, it's like I said, it's not just me, it's everybody. We're not all the same. We can't all be put in the same bracket. You know, we're not all heroin junkies. We're not all tweakers. We're not all, crazy or thieves or, messy or child molesters or, robbers or whatever, A lot of us are just people. We're all just people that have different situations. We're all people that have had a bad turn happen to them at one point and haven't been able to come out of it due to circumstances and views that other people have attached to us. And regardless of who we really are, getting help determines on what other people think we are. And it's unfortunate because assuming makes an ass out of you and me.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's unnecessary for them to put the same stigma on everybody. We're all different, but we're all still people. We all bleed the same. We all love the same. We all feel the same. And we're human. We're all human. Just like everybody else. We all deserve to be loved and respected and helped.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Okay. Before I was homeless, I lived on. I was with my son and my daughter, and we lived in West Seattle in some really great apartments. And I worked a country doctor. There was a period when I lost my job due to one of the doctors there. I guess he got in trouble by the DEA for overwriting narcotic scripts. I don't think a lot of people knew that. I did the outside refills, like when you get your prescription at Walgreens or something, they send something, and then I would go send something to the doctors, and and I created that job. It didn't exist before. The way that I did it, anyways, it's getting done by some people that were trying to do all the shots for the clinic and all the well child checks and all these things, and they were trying to do the refills, so mistakes were getting made. So I went to my boss and said, I should do it, and it should be done like this, and she went for it, believe it or not. And so I did that for 7 years, and then he I don't know what the deal was, but I, at some point, had shoulder injuries from picking up my kids, and he was my doctor before I worked there, prescribed me narcotics as well. I told him I didn't want to get addicted to him. He said, oh, you won't, and I did. And eventually I ended up on methadone, and I couldn't tell my boss that because, you know, they don't understand that sort of thing, you know, especially if I'm in charge of a script paper. They're going to think that anyone who's had a drug problem, or they're automatically going to be a thief and be something, which I wasn't. I didn't ever use the script paper for my own benefit or whatever. But anyways, he was worried that he was going to get in trouble, that I was going to tell on him for writing my narcotic scripts before. It's a long, convoluted story, but anyways, he convinced my boss to fire me, and for being 15 minutes late after 7 years. It was a horrible, horrible experience, and after losing my job, I guess things went sort of downhill. I did get unemployment for 2 years, and then we're looking for another place. We're moving out of the one in West Seattle, and we got a place. I put a deposit down, and when we were going to go pick up the keys, I called to say I'm going to pick up the keys. They said, no, I'm sorry, you have too many bills. You can come get your deposit back. And we were like instantly homeless, just like that. So we were using something called Way Back In, and it's through Renton, and they give you a place for 3 months. And then we wound up on rapid rehousing through Solid Ground. And then I found myself in a custody battle for my son, and that's what the horrible events like that almost destroyed me. And I mean, he took my son, and for no reason, he thought I was going to betray him in some way. He said, I think he just went nuts. And I had been a friend to him. I brought him food every time I came over, and it turns out he made 60 or 80 grand a year, you know, and I made less than half of that. And he thought I was going to hurt him somehow, and he's got like 6 kids or something, 5 kids, 4 different moms, and 50 convictions. I don't have a record, and I love my kids, and I raised them well, and he was able to get my son. He went downtown and got a restraining order against me, and he was on a weekend visit, and he didn't return him, and he had me served with papers, and he was able to get away with this. And that's I mean, I fought for a year. They give you a year long, like, this schedule of, you know, how your your custody hearings are all going to go, and then you think you're going to see this judge in a year, and the year came. He walked in the room, and I was like, oh great, I get to tell my side of the story. He turned around and walked out. I was like, where is he going? And they said, oh, we found 2 positive UAs in your history, in my entire history, and that's good enough for us. So he gets custody, and you can have supervised visits once a week for 4 hours. And this is the boys that I raised my whole life, his whole life. We'd never been apart until this had happened, and it almost destroyed both of us. You know, it destroyed my whole family, and nobody was there for me. I mean, it was a really messed up situation. Being homeless after that was nothing, you know, compared to losing your kid. So, but nevertheless, I was, the people at Solid Ground, as soon as I didn't have a kid in the house, they didn't even talk to me anymore. They didn't pay rent. I lost my place. Because I was in school full time, and I was just going back to get my BA, and they didn't. I just couldn't believe how instantly everyone just turned their back and assumed the worst, assumed that I did what he said, and I didn't. So I sure got on drugs. I mean, I wasn't on drugs before, but I got on them, you know, and I didn't. I went and visited my son when I could, and it was awful. I did that. I've been homeless for 8 years, almost 8 years. And I met my fiance out there. He sort of saved my life too. He had a place when I met him, and he came out. He left his apartment because his roommate didn't want anyone living with him, or he didn't want me there. And so he came out on the street sort of to be with me and protect me, I guess. while I was homeless. But we've had to struggle with it. It's been hard, you know. There's a lot of dangerous people out there. But Seattle's probably the easiest place to be homeless because there's so many resources, a lot of resources. You never will starve, and everyone's wearing designer clothes because so many people throw out so much stuff here. It's just like, and you don't even have to go in the dumpster because I'm really not into that. But people leave bags of everything out on the side of the, outside their house or by their garbage or whatever, and it's just bags of clothes that have the tags still on them,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I know why people are flocking here, because we've got resources. I hear in other cities that it's illegal to be homeless, or there's no soup kitchens or there's nothing like that. So I think we've had it pretty easy, We stayed on Capitol Hill, and the cops there are pretty cool. The only thing that they did for us was that if they found us in a place, they said, if we find you here and ask you to leave, then you are permanently trespassed from that place from now on. You can never sleep there again. So having to find a different place to sleep every single night, that's how many nights is that in 8 years? So sometimes we would make a camp somewhere and stay there for a little while, but DOT would usually find us, the Department of Transportation, and those guys are ruthless. There's some guys, some superiors that work through them that are really vicious and will wrestle your luggage out of your hands and push my man down on the ground. And I mean, they're violent for no reason. We're not doing anything to them, and we're living on the side of the freeway or something where no one can see you. So yeah, there's a lot of anger towards homeless people, I think, from certain groups, and we're just regular people, just like anybody else. So, I mean, some people are more mentally ill, but that's like that all over. I'd say there's mentally ill people working in medicine, in supermarkets, wherever, you just don't know.
Yeah.
But when you're homeless, people can see you more. You're an open book more because they can see everything you're doing. But now I signed up for the 211 coordinated entry for all about a year ago, and started getting phone calls right away, like, do you want to have a shared bathroom? I said no. I just sort of held out for what I wanted, and eventually got signed up with a group through Valley Cities, and it's a small program, and I get to pick an apartment in South Seattle, and that's what I'm looking for now. This is my apartment, and it's permanent, and I just pay 30% of my income, even if it's zero, but I'm looking for a job too, so.
So are you going to live in your apartment with your significant other?
Yeah. Yeah. He's in jail right now. He got in trouble for having our firearm. We had an illegal firearm, but he's a felon. He can't have it. So he was holding it for me while I went to go dose at methadone clinic. And somebody tattled on him, said, because some idiot was drinking on school property, and he got in trouble by the security officers, and they said, you can't drink in here. And the guy says, oh, there's a guy in the bathroom with a gun in his guitar case, and it's told on him. So he got immediately in trouble, sent to jail. And he's such a good guy, he's not at all a criminal type. And it just seems the school dropped their charges, everyone dropped the charges, but it's a federal charge to have a gun if you're a felon. So they picked it up, of course.
Yeah.
And he's been in jail for almost 2 years. Yeah, so December will be 2 years. It's a long time. We've never been apart before, and we've been together this whole time, it's almost 8 years. It's hard to know what to do, but most homeless people are just like you and me. They're just regular folks, and I'm someone's mom, I'm someone's daughter, I don't have any brothers or sisters, and my parents sort of turned their back on me through all this, and that was surprising. I didn't expect that at all. So people act weird, people act really weird about homelessness. They act like we're doing it on purpose, it's such an awful feeling to be persecuted or to be treated different or bad because you don't have anywhere to live right now. And it's hard when you're down here. It's really hard to get that foothold back up, because when you're up here, there's no problems. You got friends, you got family, you got people around you that can help you if you fall. But if you find yourself suddenly without anyone and you fall down, it's hard to get someone to give you a hand back up. So I'm really thankful for, you know, what the city's doing or what these programs are doing. You know, we're really lucky to have them.